And it was about Hadi Choopan and his reaction at the Mr. Olympia, because you were the strongest on it in terms of saying that I'd suspend his ass or something like that. You said, do you still agree with your initial reaction to it? What's up, Desktoppers? Xavier Wills here for Desktop Bodybuilding for another episode of Bodybuilding University, and today I'm joined by Stanimal, Stan the Longeaux, Brett the Butcher Wilkin, and we have Dave Palumbo, obviously of RX Muscle, Species Nutrition, and all the other things you do, Dave. Snakes, all that sort of stuff. So yeah. Firstly, Dave, I'll go to you. How have you been, and what's been going on with you, RX Muscle, and all that sort of stuff?
I have to say I've been feeling really good. I don't want to jinx myself, but I haven't been sick. I haven't needed any surgeries lately. I'm fully recovered from my cardiac surgery. As you can see, I put back a lot of size. I had gotten as low as 180 pounds, and I didn't realize I was that low. But when I was in the hospital, because I got the cardiac surgery, and of course you can't really upper body train because of the chest. They cut open your chest. So I was doing a little bit of legs in the gym, and the muscle just disappears, if you don't do anything. And I had to go back in the hospital because remember I got pneumonia somehow, probably from the breathing tube being in my lungs. So they were weighing me every day, and I'm like, I'm going to weigh the same thing. And I was progressively losing weight while I was in the hospital just from doing anything. And they want you moving, so I was doing cardio, basically walking the halls. And I said, you know what? I looked in the mirror. I'm like, I think I got too thin. I was so thin that I didn't even need blood pressure medication anymore. Like if I took it, I would be like hypo, I would be like passing out. So I said, all right, you know what? I'm gonna go back and try to gain some weight. So I started increasing my food intake. Obviously, once I was able to start training, I started working out, and I got back up to I'm about 210 now, which is a good weight for me. So.
Yeah, it's upsetting when you see your weight go down so much and you don't realize it. And then you start looking at some photos and stuff and you're like, hold on, I'm skinny as shit.
Yeah. You know what it is? And maybe you guys notice the same thing because you guys are in the midst of, your bodybuilding careers now. When you're off season in bodybuilding, your face is so bloated. And when you see yourself on camera, you're like, oh, am I ugly? Holy shit. I'm so bloated. I look terrible. When you're dieting down, you look, your face looks good. And so, I was always like, I can get my face leaner because I'm always on camera. And at a certain point, some people's face just don't look that good lean. Like my face looks good, better, fuller. Whereas some people, they can get that bony looking face and they look good. And so you gotta kind of figure out what works well for you. But what I noticed was, my blood pressure was lower and all my health stats were good. But what was happening was I was feeling weaker. You know what I mean? And I don't like that. So I feel like more, I don't know, I don't feel as fragile at 210 pounds than I do at 180, if that makes sense.
For sure.
You got to think, man, you probably have one of the highest discrepancies of weights in a lifetime, right? It's like, were you like a cross country runner, like 100?
Yeah. It's fine. But in high school, I was 165 pounds. And
165, okay. And then you went
in high school, no, but then in college, I went lower because in my mind, because someone told me, I met a coach. My father took us away to this resort, before I went away to college with my sister, myself, and him. It was like our first vacation. My mom had passed away a couple years earlier. Took us on vacation, and I met this sports coach. Came up to me because I was ripped. I looked like a rock climber. I had skinny legs from running, and I had a decent upper body from high school. And he's like, you look like a rock climber. What do you do? What sport? I said, well, I run. I have kind of a partial scholarship for running in college. I said, but I like bodybuilding. He's like, well, you can't do both. You got to pick one. I said, he's like, if you're going to do bodybuilding, you're going to have to take steroids. I'm like, oh, I would never do that. I didn't know anything about it. I was like, it sounded evil to me. He's like, well, then if you're going to be a runner, you have to lose weight. I said, lose weight? I don't have any body fat. He goes, yeah, but you're carrying around extra muscle that you don't need. So once he planted that thought in my head, I said, I got to get smaller. And he was right because I didn't look like the other runners. The other runners had these skinny legs, and I just had my legs were pretty muscular, just because, that's probably, I was probably meant to be a bodybuilder, not a runner. So I starved off the weights. I got down to like 138 pounds.
Holy shit.
For cross country. And I was faster, because it's less weight to carry around. It's the old Lance Armstrong, he after he had cancer, he became a better cyclist because he lost 20 pounds.
I thought you were going to say it's because he lost a nut.
No, no. If you ever read, I read his book, and he said that he actually, because from all the chemotherapy, he went so low
for sure.
that he actually was a better cyclist when he got back on the bike, and he realized that he was carrying around, because he was pretty muscular, he had big legs, and he's like, I realized I was carrying around weight, and it was just, and he's like a mathematician, and he figured out, for every pound that you carry on the bike, it slows you down by so many seconds.
Something, yeah.
And so I did that. So when I stopped running, when college was over and I kind of got into medical school and I was going to go to the next level, I had just discovered bodybuilding. I wasn't running anymore in college. And I was still, recreationally running. But I said, you know what? I look terrible. I said, I'm never going to get a date with a girl. I said, I'm embarrassed. I'm so skinny. So I started getting into the bodybuilding again. And the rest is history.
So what was the highest weight you ever reached?
I was 319. Was the highest I ever saw the scale go. I was in the parking lot of Venice Gold's gym, and Steve Neese, you guys don't know Steve Neese. Steve Neese was like this guy this big 6'4", bulky, dorky guy who worked for Muscle Mag. He wrote a column called Muscle Beach, and he would just stay at the gym all day long, hang out there, and he would just snap pictures of people and like write down notes of who's this person, who's that person, and it was like a gossip column. And it was popular because people there was no internet. It was like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok before there was ever any thing like that. And he's like, he goes, how much do you weigh? I said, I think I'm 319 pounds. He's like, get on the scale. Because he's like, no one gets on the scale. Everyone lies about their weight. I said, I'll get on the scale. So I get on the scale. He takes me into the gym. And sure enough, I weigh 319 pounds. He's like, holy shit. He goes, all right, I want to take some pictures of you. So I'm in the parking lot, and he's snapping pictures of me. I look like, I wasn't fat. I was lean, but I was very bloated at that weight. And Mike Menser pulls up. I'd never met him before. I knew who he was, obviously. He pulls up in a Volare station wagon. It was like 30 years old, this thing. It barely ran. Because he would train people at Gold's all day long. He did that heavy duty system where he was do like 2 sets, it was 20-minute workouts. And he gets out of the car and he has a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. His hair is all disheveled. And he's like, he walks past us and goes, and then he stops, he turns around and he looks at me, he goes, holy shit, you're a freak. And he starts circling me like he's like evaluating me, but he's like in a maniacal state. Like you would think he was like on drugs or something like that. Holy, this guy, and he's telling Steve Neese, he's like, this guy's a freak. He's a freak. What's your name? I said, Dave Palumbo. Holy shit, I got to go train someone. And then he bolts away. And so that was the highest documented weight I ever was.
It came at a good time.
Yes.
Yeah. Scare Mike Menser.
Yeah, that was my one and only encounter with Mike Menser was that park. And I never forgot it because, to have Mike Menser call you a freak, he's training Dorian at this time. I'm like, that was a compliment from him.
Hell yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's so funny nowadays how back in the day, I even remember like going to gyms when I was like, 15, 16 and being genuinely scared and intimidated by people. And it feels like nowadays, because you can film everything, it's just that's gone away. Like there's very few people, unless they're like some sort of a murderer or some sort of a crazy, complete nut job. Yeah. You're not really scared of people like that in the gym now because you're just like, I'll call the police, I'll film it. You can get away with, you can't get away with
walked into the gym in Cape Coral here. They opened the Crunch Fitness here about 2 years ago. And I joined. I went in there, and I had been working out at home because my kids were really young, and I really hadn't been at the gym. And I got my shoulder replacement. So first time I got to the gym, I joined the gym, and I walked in, and I see this enormous guy. I mean, he's got to be, and there's no big guys in this area, but he looks like he's almost 7 feet tall, and he's got a good physique on him. And I'm like, I got to know who this guy is, but I couldn't for some reason place him. He looked familiar to me, and I saw him a couple days in a row, and then finally I went up to him and introduced myself, and then I realized who it was. It was Aaron Reed. You know who Aaron Reed is?
Yeah,
I don't think
He's
so.
pretty popular on social media, on Instagram. If you look,
he used to be in Venice, Gold's Gym.
yeah, he was in Venice for a while, and then he moved to Tampa. He was in the WWE for a while. Was trying to get into that.
Yeah.
He's 6'7", this guy,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't realize how big 6'7" is until you see it in person. You know,
Filled out.
My cousin's 6'7".
yeah,
It's tall.
but he's 300 pounds. He's got a lot of muscle on his body. He's not humongous, but he's big enough that it's in there. I said, how did you not make it in the WWE? I said, I mean, you're perfect for the WWE. Plus, he's a good-looking guy, you know. And I don't know. He had some kind of like run-in with them or something. I think he got injured or something like that. And he would have been perfect. But that to me, like, that's impressive. Like, you know, when I was working out back in the day and I was 300 pounds, I was impressed when people would see me and they'd be like, holy shit, that guy's freak. But when you see a guy 6'7", you know, that to me is you know, really impressive. I don't know why. Height seems to be more impressive to me. That's why Greg Kovacs was like 6'2" and like 420 pounds. And to me, he was way more impressive than I looked, you know, even though he wasn't as ripped as I was, but he was just like a humongous human being, you know.
I think part of it's the width too, because with the height, you know, just be, you know, when you feel narrow next to somebody like that, and you can be the same weight, but they just appear so much larger.
I had a BMW at the time, and Greg came and visited me, Greg Kovacs, and his wife, and so we're both I'm driving, and he's in the front, you know, passenger seat, and a BMW 5 Series is not a small car, you know. It's there's room. I mean, you guys would be fine in it. He was like. He looked like it was like a circus act, like the way he had like crossed arms, put his chin in his chest. It was so enormous. He couldn't fit in his. I said, if you break that seat, I said, because he had just broken a bathtub, a jacuzzi bathtub in his house. He was laying in the tub and he went to put his hand down to get out of it, and his hand went through the tub.
Oh.
That's how heavy he was. What's the heaviest you guys have been?
289.
All right. When you get to 300, which you guys will eventually, something happens at 300 that you start breaking shit. And it's not like you're trying. You lean against things and they just break. And then you realize, you know, I'm pretty heavy, I guess.
Yeah.
It happens at 300 pounds. I'm telling you. You'll see what I'm talking about.
For sure.
All these chairs.
Every lawn chair you sit in is definitely going down.
I used to go to the beach. The beach was a big thing back in the 90s. We'd all go to the Jones Beach in Long Island. Field 4, and we bring these aluminum lounge chairs, like saying, and they would last one time. I would just lean back a little bit, and they go. That was it.
Bending.
Dave, I love how you said the beach was a big thing back in the 90s. Like it's like people don't go to the beach now, but they don't as much.
No, because people are afraid of everything, including the sun now. No one will go lay in the sun. Kidding me?
True.
I don't even know how tanning salons stay in business anymore because people are afraid of everything these days. My wife sends me TikTok videos of like parasites and sushi. Now I already have like a food aversions already because I'm like always I think I'm being poisoned by mercury with all the, you know, I won't eat like tuna anymore and striped bass because I heard Jason Hugg got, you know, mercury poisoning, and then I know tuna has mercury in it. I love swordfish. I used to eat a ton of. I won't eat swordfish anymore because they have mercury. I only eat salmon and like yellowtail. And now she's sending me stuff about parasites. That the parasites are going to eat your brain away, you know, and they're going to cause cancer. Now I'm like all paranoid about suit. There's nothing safe in this world anymore.
No.
I swear to you.
Social media makes it the worst because they, like you said, they have these videos that like they're so well done in the marketing aspect that people believe it. So I even catch my wife Ivana too, like. Sent me this thing about like orange juice. Simply orange juice is like it's gonna kill you and stuff. And like we gotta change our orange juice brand. I'm like, stop, just
I know.
Stop, man. Like
we live in an insane world. But you know what the funny thing is? It's all the healthy stuff they tell you is terrible for you now. But the unhealthy stuff no one talks about, which is really the stuff that's killing us, like the high fructose corn syrup and the trans fats and all that stuff. But that stuff is not the stuff you see on TikTok. It's like they want us to eat that junk, and they want us to stay away from the healthy stuff. So they're trying to like make it plant these thoughts in our brain that we shouldn't eat the healthy stuff because it's got mercury and it's got PCBs, it's got this, it's got that, it's got arsenic. everything that grows in the ground now has got lead in it. It's like you can't get away from it. It's crazy.
I will say, I'm recently a new parent, Dave.
Yeah.
And I find myself doing some stuff. I'm like, come on, like, so at the grocery store, I'll grab the baby, like organic, like avocados and bananas, but then I'll walk over and grab myself the non-organic.
Right.
I grew up, I didn't have organic shit growing up.
Yeah, I started doing the same. Everything, all the beef was grass fed.
Organic stuff is organic, to be honest with you.
I know, and so like I'm looking at the numbers on. I'm like, okay, do I really?
How would we know? How could you prove it? You know,
right, exactly.
Yeah.
We're meant to be regulated by like an overall whatever regulations they have different ones, but you know.
Look, the drug, all the water supply is poisoned. It's like, there's nothing safe that you can possibly do. So you know what I tell people? I said, look, you got to do your best. That's all you can do. You can't run around afraid of everything. I like eating sushi. I don't eat it every day, but I eat it once a week. You know what? I'm not giving up sushi because I got parasite. They think this. People tell me because TikTok. I love how people think TikTok is now the authority. It used to be that the medical journals were the authority. Now it's TikTok is the authority on everything related to science now. I just laugh at it when I see it. That's where everyone gets their information now. TikTok, which is owned by the Chinese, by the way, you know, and and they don't have any agendas, right?
Yeah. No, completely. No corruption in there. But that, Dave, I wanted to ask you actually. I think I made a video on it. I'm pretty sure. It was about Hadi Choopan and his reaction at the Mr. Olympia, because you were the strongest on it in terms of saying that I'd suspend his ass or something like that. You said, do you still agree with your initial reaction to it? Do you think that it was too much?
I mean, you know, I think he should have been sanctioned in some capacity. I mean, that was a little bit of poor sportsmanship. I mean, why not? Maybe they should have fined him a little bit. You know, he just won. What did he win at the Olympia? 150 grand, 200 grand? What did he win?
Something.
Yeah, I think it's.
They should have fined him 15 grand and donated it to a charity or something like that. I'm guaranteed he wouldn't do it again. I'm not saying that I don't think he should not be allowed to compete. You know, because I think that's how people make their living. But if you take away people's as Greg would say, the schedule, then he might think twice about walking off stage again. It's just bad sportsmanship. You know, come on. No one likes to lose. You guys have all lost shows. I mean, did you go run off the stage? I don't care if it's the Olympia or not. If it's the Olympia, you should really be a good sport about it, because you're supposed to be more of a professional at that level. So,
well, think of the guys like Ronnie Coleman and Phil Heath that won 7 or 8 before they lost.
Right,
you know what I mean?
right.
Think about the pressure they had on them. I know they're getting into, well, I was representing the country. We're all representing something. You know what I mean?
He was angry because he felt that because people were probably whispering in his ear that he deserved to win it. If he didn't win, it was going to be because he was Iranian. And I guarantee, and I don't think he's a bad guy. I think all the people around him built it up so much so that he believed it after a while, because, hey, let's face it, no one wants to lose. And it was close. It wasn't like it was like a blowout. So that must be the reason they took the Olympia away from me, because, I was being discriminated against. He wasn't thinking rationally, because if he was being discriminated against, he would never have won the Olympia to begin with, right? So he won the Olympia last year. Derek was a little better this year. It was close. Everyone said it was very close, and that's just the way it works out. You got to be a good sport. You suck it up. You come back next year. You try to win it back, or like he's doing now, you go to the Arnold and win that. And so I just think that people have to be, at that level, we have to hold people up at a higher standard, because they're representing the sport. He was the reigning Mr. Olympia. You can't do that. He's not some amateur guy who never competed before. He's done a million shows. You got to be more professional, and we have to hold the top guys up to a higher standard. If LeBron James, flick someone off after he lost the NBA championship, people would be going crazy on this guy,
Yeah. Well, also Hadi has a history of like being screwed over his career. Like he had a hard time to really make it where he is today.
But as Dexter would say, still Mr. Olympia. He won an Olympia, after all that. How many people win the Olympia? Not many people, very small number of people won the Olympia. So if you won the Olympia, you weren't screwed that badly.
No. For sure.
Yeah.
Talk to Flex Wheel or Kevin Levrone or Victor Martinez or Nasser El Somebody. Those guys were screwed. And they never won at Olympia, so they were great bodybuilders.
But Flex also had some reactions that were questionable.
Yeah, but it wasn't. I don't think it was that bad. I don't know. I guess in '98 he wasn't too happy, and I don't know if he was fined or not by Wayne D'Amelio or not. But I don't know. But there wasn't social media back then, so only a handful of people who were there saw it.
Yeah. It took so much. I think it's just like you said. Now it just took so much focus away from the win. You know what I mean? That's what all the talk was about. So you feel bad.
Derek is getting his Facebook. I mean, his Instagram shut down by the fans. I mean, come on, it was just a sore loser move, on their part.
Yeah, and I feel bad for Hadi in the sense that if this had happened and then the stuff with Derek's account didn't happen and the stuff with all the attacks that they've got and stuff didn't happen, I think we would have forgotten about it a bit quicker. But it was compounded by the fans, which are Hadi supporters, actually making his life more hard by the small few of them, really. Because if you've got X amount of millions of people that are your fan, you only need a small percentage to be nutcases and to do things that just aren't right. So
it's a very we're living in a very odd time now too, and I think the reason maybe I've forgiven it a little bit more in my mind is because, I mean, look what happened in Israel with the attacks on October 7th, and then there's a lot of tension between both of those worlds, and I think that can sometimes spill over the emotions of that. I think if that event hadn't occurred, I think it would have gone a lot smoother, and I don't necessarily think that Hadi would have gotten as bent out of shape about it. So I kind of I'm gonna dismiss it in my mind as a circumstance that maybe just got a little out of control.
Yeah, it's crazy. This is obviously a bit off topic, but with all the I don't know what you think, Dave, and all of you guys, but there's so much division now. There's division between even just from Australia, because I see everything that you guys see because of social media now. So Australians now are so invested in the American left and right, and everyone now here talks about American politics, which is crazy. So
you guys
hear about all that
with Americans to begin with. That's why,
True, yeah, but it's just compounded so much now because now there's a left and a right, and it's almost those views have now come over to Australia. So you've got some people be like, Trump's an idiot, blah blah, and whether they know politics or not, they're going to have that opinion because their friend has that opinion or whatever, or they hear some news clip or whatever. And then you got the other people which are super right wing in Australia now. And really, before, all Australian politics is we have what we call a Liberal and a Labor Party, but they're almost the same, and they just argue points against each other. And one's slightly more right wing, and maybe one's slightly more left wing, but it's quite funny now. There's more division. It seems like it's coming over here as well, and it's just everything in the world just seems like it's dividing. We want everyone fighting each other, and it's just really weird. And I don't know if you, Dave and Brett, because now you're parents, I get concerned for my kids in the future. I'm because even I know people are traveling to Egypt now and stuff, and it's is that a risky place to go now with all the conflict? Where can you go, where can't you go? And it's there's always something happening. You had 9/11, you have all those tragedies, you have COVID, you have all that stuff, and it seems like every decade or something there's something crazy happening in the world. So, but yeah, I don't know if you guys are concerned for your kids, but it sort of feels like that a bit.
It's just going to continue and be probably more dramatic. But no, America's we're just a reality TV for you guys. That's all we are.
Yeah, he's right.
Politics are just a big soap opera. That's what you guys are tuning in for.
Yeah. Trust me, it's not good back here either. It's crazy. You guys know obviously what happened with the whole, that situation a couple of years ago and stuff, and you heard about what it was like out here. It was just madness. So anyway, let's get off.
Happens around election time, though. Now that there's a presidential election coming up, all the different organizations that want to promote a certain candidate or agenda have to now divide the country because they don't want us together. They don't want a cohesive, force of people saying, you know what, we're sick of all this crap. We're cleaning house. We're putting a new person in there. I love Kennedy. I love RFK Jr. I'll vote for him. I haven't voted in an election. I can't even tell you how long, but I would vote for him because he's the only sane person in the world.
I like him.
And they don't want him because he's going to go in there and clean up everything and get rid of all these shysters and all the. We're the only country, actually, us and New Zealand, believe it or not, who allow drug companies to actually advertise on TV. Did you know that?
Yeah, we don't. Yeah.
You don't. Most countries, only 2 countries in the whole world, because it's because you can't, because you're basically brainwashing people into thinking they need these drugs, and people are actually going to doctors and saying, I need to be on this prescription medication, and they don't even have any symptoms of this thing, because you can't do that. There's got to be a separation. They never allowed that before. This is a new thing. So, like Kennedy's like, you can't do that. And NIH, which used to be the most esteemed research group in the entire world. Everyone used to look to the United States. If NIH said, the National Institute of Health said that this stuff is good, then it's good. They don't even, other countries wouldn't even test drugs. They say if NIH said it's good, then it's good. And nowadays, the drug companies actually underwrite NIH. So the National Institute of Health actually works for the drug company. So of course they're going to push pharmaceutical drugs and stuff like that, like indiscriminately, and they're not going to do the safety studies on it because they're in their back pocket. You can't do that. You got to separate it. So I think if someone came in there and cleaned all this up, I really hope Kennedy gets elected. I do. I think our country would heal again, and it would come back together, because I don't think if you talk to any sane person, no one wants this stuff. No one agrees with, you shouldn't have to have a presidential election where you have to pick the best, the lesser of 2 evils. You know what I mean? And, I'd much rather see Trump in there, but, at the same time, I'm not thrilled. I wouldn't mind having someone who's going to have a new way of seeing things in there. And so it's an interesting time we live in. It'll, hopefully it all works out, but, the last election didn't work out too well. So we'll see what happens. Yeah. It's never good for the bodybuilder. You ever notice that? First of all, a lot of people don't know that Biden is the one who passed the 1990 Steroid Control Act in this country. So the reason steroids are controlled substances are because of him.
Just get him out.
Yeah, get him out. When he was trying to push that legislation through, which was right after the Barcelona Olympics, or right before the Barcelona Olympics in '92, he actually, the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency, which is the agency that actually makes steroids controlled substances, they said this drug doesn't qualify as it's not an addictive drug. It doesn't really it doesn't fit into our wheelhouse of what we do. We do narcotics and like Valium and Xanax and stuff like that, and addictive drugs like that. We don't do hormones, but they pushed it through anyway because it was on their agenda. They wanted to make it look like they were cleaning up sports. And so, I'm not for government that likes to control things that they don't need to control. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Well, we actually had something out here in Australia recently. I don't know I think Lee mentioned it on one of the shows, Dave, but I know obviously you're doing my job here, so you're probably pulling up stuff and doing all that. But he briefly mentioned it. We had something called The Voice, and it was a referendum. So where everyone in Australia is required to vote. And basically it was for if Aboriginal people have sent essentially their own part in Parliament sort of thing, almost like an advisory board, and then there's something to be added into the Constitution in terms of recognising them as owning the land and all that sort of stuff. But then nothing was explained really on what it exactly was, and everyone's trying to figure it out. So we're voting yes or no on this, and then there's talk about we might be, if we're not Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islanders, we'd have to pay to go to the beach and stuff like that. And you have to buy like passes and things. And then people, if it's certain Aboriginal land, you'll get taxed on your house and stuff. And everyone, it was resounding no. But it cost them, because this is coming up to the election, right? It cost them it was like something like $600 million. And it's like, couldn't you have put that into Aboriginal communities? Like, it's a lot of money.
Because they wanted to make it like, look, we voted on it. It was turned down. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, it's just so ridiculous. But yeah, it's all a political push.
Window dressing. That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and it split the Aboriginal community because half of them were like yes, half of them were like no because they like had their own reasons. So it was yeah, just another thing to make people more divisive.
Yeah.
So
I did I don't mean to interrupt you. I wanted to get their opinion on something. I did a rant. I haven't put it up yet, but probably by the time the show goes up, it'll be up. Because someone had posted a video where Dorian was talking about training. You know, I love to listen to Dorian talk about training. Maybe politically, I don't necessarily agree with everything he says, but training wise, I really love and he was basically saying how, you know, how these coaches out there are coaches out there that will give you like a new workout every week and they alter things around and they're always changing exercises. He's like, if you squat or you do certain exercises and they work for your body, why would you change it? If you're growing from a certain exercise, what's the need to have to change an exercise every single week? He goes, there is no reason. He said, because the body doesn't know what exercise you're doing. It only knows the stress that it feels imparted upon it. And if the weight is heavy and the stress is intense enough, the body adapts and it grows. He said, the reason why trainers do that is because they want to make themselves seem like they're indispensable. And I thought it was a really good point. I wanted to get your guys' opinion on that. Because, you know, I thought I completely embraced what he said. And I said, it was so refreshing to hear someone else say it because I've been saying that for years.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of it is just people will get bored. You know, I mean, we'll get bored with just if you stick to training the same thing all the time, you know, they're not able to handle that, right?
But isn't bodybuilding a boring sport? I mean, it
should be. You want to be good at it. But the people that are doing this, the people you're referencing that are changing lifts every week, they're not the ones that are at the top either. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but people that like bodybuilding because your body changes. But the only way it changes if you train intensely, you eat right, you get enough sleep, and so that should be enough of a. At least for me, that was enough of an exciting thing that I didn't have to go and try to do all kinds of kooky, crazy stuff. You know,
even having to try to beat yourself is actually motivation itself.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, but a lot more people are doing bodybuilding just for the clicks and the views and the likes now. So it's a little different now. It's not about actually. It's not actually about bettering yourself.
You're right. You're right.
It's crazy. So it's just a different age in general. But you can't, like you said, the fundamentals are always going to be there. You see the people that are still doing the fundamentals are the ones that are responding and growing, and it's not going to change. So it's got to be, and like you said, now it's such with the social media, it is something that you want to try. It's more about trying to stick out, right? So then this is where you're getting all these crazy exercises, all these differences, all these bands, all these, you know, and so just to get appealing, like you said, and then. But people were even realize that it's the bread and butter that's going to actually cause the changes.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned bands. Whenever I see someone using a band, I know I'm going to see a terrible physique. I've never seen a great physique using a band. I don't know why.
There's been a few. John Meadows used to.
What?
John Meadows used to. Have you guys used them?
John Meadows had that muscle before he ever picked up a single band. I think he was doing it because he knew that his clientele needed, like Brett said, they needed to be stimulated mentally, thinking they were doing something different. But I think that John was one of these people that really was looking for little nuances to make his training, set itself apart from everyone else's, so that he could make money from it, which is fine. That's a business he was in. You know, he was a trainer. He really was an in-gym training guy. He really wasn't like a diet guy. You know, if I do coaching for people, it's because I'm getting them in shape for shows. I'm not in the gym with them training them. So if I was in the gym training with them, I hate to say it, you have to kind of play that game. But you and I know that the real hardcore bodybuilders, they squat, they deadlift, they bench press, they shoulder press, and that's how they get big. You know, the other stuff is just kind of window dressing after that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually remember I took over someone when I was PTing. I took over a trainer's training his clients, and he'd have a group of 3, or then there's a group of a big group of girls and stuff like that. But there was 3 people training in one thing, and he'd say, "Here's the workout," and he'd just send it to me. So I'm like, okay, well, I just whatever. But then it was changing all the time dramatically, and I remember even asking them and saying, "Do you like that it changes?" And the 2 guys that were in the group, because it was a guy, his friend, and then his partner. And the guys were like, no. And then the female was like, yeah, I like it. So it was the guys, even with diet, it's the same thing. Because I've had clients that are male and female.
Yep.
You give a male a diet, they're like, Yep, it was all good. Yep, it's fine. You don't change a female's diet for 3 weeks, and they're like, why isn't it changing? They're freaking out, like, because they're like, I'm sick of this food, this food,
Yeah.
this food, and this food. And the guys tend to just be like, give it to me, and I'll do it.
Yeah, well,
It's
you
so
guys leave
different.
the same thing every day. But you know what the funny thing about what you said? I just want to comment on that because, you know, I'll give people like meal choices, and I'll be like, I'll give them like an egg meal, a protein shake. I'll give them like a fish meal or a red meat meal. So they're eating like there's like 4 or 5 different meals that they're eating throughout the day, or that they can choose from. And then I have someone like you said, like a woman will contact me. She's like, you know, I'm really bored of all these food of the same food every day. What else can I eat? I said, well, let me ask you a question. You're eating eggs, you're having a protein shake, you're eating salmon, you're eating red meat, you're having, tilapia or whatever, cod. I said, what else is there? Did I forget something that I wasn't? You want to eat pork chops? Like, what do you want to eat? And then they think about
They want wraps with feta cheese in it and shit.
They want, well, what about cottage cheese, Greek yogurt? I'm like, I said, are you 12 years old? I said,
He wants some yolk and lunch bowls too.
Yeah. Exactly.
But to bounce back to what you were saying, Dave, personally, I change my exercise very rarely. Like I stick to the same things for weeks and weeks and weeks in the same exact order and trying to do more reps or more weights.
Yep.
And I also use bands, but just for dumbbell rows. I love them. I put the band in front of me, so when I row, it's not just a vertical pull, but also down. And I love that.
Yeah. Look, there's definitely a place, I mean, for all the little accoutrements that come along with it. But I'm saying, if you just put someone in a basement and you gave them only free weights, said, here, this is all you got.
Yeah,
I guarantee you they would probably look better than with all the extras.
That's how I started. I started like, this is my bedroom for a year.
You know what it is? I think also once you have a level of muscularity in your body, you can do other kind of more esoteric stuff and get actually results out of it. But if you have if your legs need 4 inches of muscle on them, and you're doing kooky in or out of thigh machines and all kinds of other crazy stuff, with lightweight and trying to squeeze this and that, and doing glute kickbacks. I'm like, just get under a squat bar at that point. People try to make everything so complicated.
Well, I think more so, especially when you were coming up, you didn't have all these. Again, going back to media, you didn't see all these things being done. So all you knew was the basics, right? You started.
But they were doing it. There was a lot of machines. Like in the 90s, that's when all the machines came out. You had Cybex and Hammer Strength. That was the heyday of machines, actually.
Right.
And we got sucked into it at first, and then we realized what was going on, and we kind of backed off of them. But because machines are easier. That's why people like them. Look at you go to that gym in Dubai. I mean, you got Oxygen there. You got Benai's gym. I mean, they have hundreds and hundreds of machines. They're the nicest, most beautiful. It's like pieces of artwork, these things. And you want to use every one of them, right?
I'm wondering, sometimes, do they even sweat in there? It's just the machine you go in there, moves for you. And you're like,
I don't know. There's a lot of big guys who train there, so someone's sweating.
12 different things. You're like, you walk out, you're like.
So like I was saying before, I started in my basement for like a year. And then I finally joined the gym, and there's all these machines. And for the first 6 months, I didn't make much progress. And I'm realizing I'm always doing all those machines now instead of all the free weights. So I went back to the free weights.
I think machines have a place. They definitely are good, especially, as secondary or third movements. But I think if you abandon your free weight, type stuff, it's just not the same because, you're not, if you get under a Smith machine and you squat, what are you doing? You're pushing the bar up and down. Yeah. You're not stabilizing it side to side. You're not stabilizing it front to back because the machine does that for you. And in order for you to do that stabilization, you have to use muscles on your body. So that's why the old saying was, if you squat, you build muscle on your whole body.
Yeah.
Which is true. If you squat 600 pounds, you have the stabilization you need.
Dave, your mic might be going a bit dodgy.
Mine
sounds all right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm getting too excited. I'm moving around too much. No, I'm saying my point was if you're squatting 600, think about the stabilization that you need to do to keep that weight up, so you don't fall over to one side or the other, or you don't fall backwards or forward. That's a lot of muscle that you're using. You're using your entire body to stabilize that weight. You don't do that when you Smith machine squat or you leg press. The machine does that for you. So how could the development even be close to comparable?
Yeah. Exertion is down as well.
Same thing with a bench press. If you get under an incline bench press and you bench press 405 for reps, and then you do it on the Smith machine, you know how much less you get out of it on the Smith machine because you're not balancing the bar. Same thing with dumbbells is even more, because dumbbells can go side to side, they can go front to back. There's so much stabilization required in that movement, which is why you get such better development from it,
Yeah, for sure. Now, I thought we'd move on to some listener questions. We've only got a couple here. But someone asked about the point system. So what do you guys think about the point system? Obviously, they removed it last year. They had it the years prior. Some people believe the reason why some of these guys that are maybe typically placing in the, anywhere from as low as 10th or 11th up to maybe 4th have sort of been discouraged from competing because they're like, well, I can maybe get as high as 3rd or 4th or maybe 2nd at a push, but they won't now do the shows because they're like, I'm not going to qualify for the Olympia because points is maybe still something in the back of your head. Now, most bodybuilders, like a lot of you guys I know obviously want to win to qualify for Mr. Olympia, but I think there's still people out there that are like, if I do enough shows, I could either potentially win, maybe, or qualify on points. Do you think there's something to that in terms of getting more of a competitors back on stage in terms of doing more shows, or do you think it more comes down to prize money, I guess? Stan, what do you think?
I think it comes down more to prize money at the end of the day, personally. I'm not sure the point system changed much. I think also there was a timing of things. Like last year, a lot of people took the year off to make progress, so that's also part of what last year maybe was less loaded as far as the talent in the shows. But I think the main attraction is the money, because again, when you get what's the point of doing a show? Getting visibility. You're only getting that if you're top 2, 3 at most, maybe 5 at a big show. So if you're going to a show and you already know some names are favored to win, and it's going to cost you money, you're not going to make any back, and you're not even going to get any visibility. So what's the point? And I think that's why a lot of people decided to take the year off to actually make major improvements so they can actually place in those spots that actually bring something to them. So it's actually valuable for them to compete.
Sure. Dave, what's your thoughts?
I think it was good that they got rid of it. I'll tell you why. Because there was too many people on the Olympia stage. The Olympia is supposed to be the elite of the elite. Now, is it true that some people make it to the Olympia stage that don't belong there? Probably. Yeah, because what happens is if you don't pick the right shows to try to qualify at, and everyone picks the same shows, there's going to be some good guys that don't make it to the Olympia, and then there's going to be some guys that just happen to pick the right show that no one showed up at and wound up on the Olympia stage. But that's the way it works. If I place 5th at a pro show, okay, which normally would give me a couple of points. I don't know, a point. What is it? I don't remember how the points were run exactly. But let's say I come in 5th at 3 pro shows, and I get, or maybe 3rd, 2nd, whatever. I'm not good enough to go to the Olympia because I couldn't even win a show. So why would I care if I qualify for the Olympia? I'm obviously competing at this point to try to establish myself as a guy who could win a pro show. Once I win a pro show, it kind of validates me, right, as belonging on the Olympia stage, and then I qualify. So why would I want to accumulate, 10 5th place votes, and go to the Olympia on points because I just happen to do enough shows to make it there? I'm obviously not going to do well on the Olympia stage. So, I'm not that sad that the point system has been taken away. I would like there to be maybe a wild card, pick, like they have in football, because sometimes there's one person who just doesn't make it because they just come in 2nd at 2 shows, right before the Olympia, and there's no more shows left for them to qualify, and we really know that they belong on the Olympia stage. So if there was a wild card type of situation, maybe, I don't know how that would work exactly. I think that would be good. What I would like them to do is, and I suggested this with Chris Aceto, is that I'd like to see that the reestablishment of this European or this international pro circuit after the Olympia, and I would love them to put points attached to that and have like an international Grand Prix winner at the end, and maybe give them a big prize or something like that. Whoever wins the most points, for that. But I wouldn't have that be a qualification for anything specific.
Dave, I almost came up with the exact same idea as that, but the way I thought of it is to get the best guys competing multiple times through the year. Is if we split it up into, like in the NBA now, Brett, you would know, like the in-season tournament they've got in the NBA. So cut it up. So just say there's 16 open men's pro shows. So split it up into 4 lots of 4 shows. And then we can guarantee how many will qualify for the Olympia, because say 3 or 4 guys from each tournament, whoever places the highest in the points for each one, qualifies for the Olympia. Because then you can have someone win a show out of those 4 shows, but if they choose to sit out the other ones, they're at risk of not getting in the top 3 or 4 or whatever in the points for that round. So it would encourage guys to, if they win one show, then to do one more, and then on to the Olympia. So you got the top guys that are winning shows competing in at least 2 shows instead of it just one.
But how do you attribute the shows? Like, how do you tell how many athletes are going to sign up for the season and who's going to do what lot of shows?
Yeah, you win the Arnold class.
Well, you have to sign up. You have to guess.
Yeah, it's too hard to do that in bodybuilding because there's injuries and there's all kinds of unknown things that pop up at the last minute.
Guys always drop out of shows though.
I think the way they have it now is good, but I would like to see like a point, like an overall point winner at the end of the season get like a special prize, like maybe $100,000 or something like that, because that would encourage people to compete more frequently, I think.
Even have a top 10 and all the way down the list, you get $100,000 for first, 50 for second, 30, because guys might go, stuff it, I'll do 4 shows this year.
We'll call that the Milos Award.
Yeah.
As many shows as possible, please.
You can get a sponsor. I guarantee you someone would sponsor that and put money up for it, because that's a lot of exposure, you know what I mean, for a supplement company or something.
I think we need more innovation, because you see it in, even the biggest sports that have established something under their current formula that's working, obviously. Like you see Formula One, they do sprint races now because they're like, well, okay, we're taking away some of the practice, which is boring. Right. Let's fill it with sprint races. So it's like they're adding additional things. Some fans like it, some fans don't, but it gets more eyes, more exposure. It makes the whole thing. And I think there's so many things. I mean, it was discussed recently on Fuad's podcast. Dave, you've discussed it before on your podcast about doing live streaming, have one place you can go. Yeah. It just makes sense. Have a sponsor for that, an overall sponsor, and then say to their shows, because obviously there's going to be an issue with promoters, say to them, we're lowering the sanction fee, so you don't have to worry about as much, but we take the streaming. You know what I mean? Make it so it's not just screwing promoters doing a live stream and making money there. It's going, okay, you're going to be compensated by paying less sanction fees.
Xavier, you're breaking
door fees.
Pretty bad.
I am?
Am I? Okay.
Xavier's breaking up, yeah.
Or they get, they could get shit, like depending on the viewers. Depending on how many viewers they get in the stream, every show gets, a biggest share. And then you push people to want to,
Look, Arnold proved, I think, once and for all last year that prize money does matter. We all said, people don't care. But you know what? Arnold put up $300,000 for first place. And all of a sudden, the lineup was the Olympia lineup in the show. So that proved exactly what Stan said earlier. It's about prize money. People will do the shows where there's the most prize money. And
I mean, right now it's hard to even justify doing it. That's the thing.
Yeah. Well, that's why I said let these guys in Dubai and Kuwait, all these Middle Eastern countries, they have money allocated and earmarked for bodybuilding because they love bodybuilding. Let these guys hold pro shows and put up $100,000 for first place for an average show. If they did that, then you know what? You'd have a lot more people competing more frequently, like you said, because now if I know I'm going to make $50,000 for second place and I'm going to make $25,000 for third place, I'm going to the show. You know?
Yeah, and then you can afford doing more shows too.
Saudi Arabia's already taken over a big enough sport like golf. I think we can use some more bodybuilding.
Right.
We're going to need a slice of that.
What did they pay? What's his name? They paid him like $200 million. Or they paid Ronaldo $200 million or something like that?
For soccer too. Yeah.
I mean, if they could pay him $200 million, they could put up $1 million prize money. Easy. It would be like a joke almost.
I mean, literally, but one of those guys, if they wanted to just own bodybuilding in some way, they can just go, okay,
Yeah.
Here's our money. Someone can literally take over a sport. Like I've thought about it, like with, obviously Jake Wood bought the Olympia. That's a huge move. But Patrick Bet David, after that happened, he said, no one told me about it. He's like, I would have bought it. And I'm like, holy crap.
Yeah,
So but
money
there is people that want it, you know? So
it's true. The funny thing is that I really don't think that the people who run the Olympia, and who run the sport want that, because if I'm in the Middle East, if I'm in, let's say, Qatar, and I put up $1 million for a pro show, and it's not the Olympia, okay, and I'm giving away 500 grand to first place, I'm giving 250 to second place, I'm giving 100 grand for third place, 50 grand for fourth place, 25 grand for fifth place. Now it makes the other shows look pathetic. So now the other shows have to match that, and they don't want that, because that now there's going to be more money coming out of the promoters' pockets and having to be given to the athletes, and it's going to set a precedent that I don't think that they're ready to allow it to happen. And I think that's why we haven't seen it yet, because I know that there's money in those countries, and these countries will put up that kind of money if they're allowed to,
I thought that there was
It's also not fair to keep it at 10,000 though either.
no.
When it was the same in the 90s, like even in inflation, it should be 25,000
at least.
I think it's 27 or 28. I worked it out.
Is it? Is that what it is?
Something like that. Yeah.
But you know what? I understand promoters in the United States. Sponsors don't understand bodybuilding. They think steroids, and they think it's bad for marketing. But the Middle Eastern countries, they don't think that way, and their advertisers there will not think that way.
Even South America, in Brazil, there's a lot of money in the bodybuilding there too.
Brazil is huge too. Look at what Tamer and his brother have done down there in Brazil with muscle contest. I mean, it's insane. So
with a live stream, if they made it all free and just charged advertisers, these show promoters, the IFBB or whoever owned the stream could say, hey, if you can get up to 3 or 4 sponsors you can put into, and we'll put their ads on this video as well. So everyone can make money. It's just,
instead of the athletes on screens.
But like, it's almost puzzling to me, because back in the days of bodybuilding.com, when I got into bodybuilding, so I was like, 16 or something. So I'm 34 now. So how many, 18 years ago, they were live streaming shows with commentary for free.
Right, but that's because bodybuilding.com was underwriting it, because they knew that people were buying product from them. They were like Amazon back then for bodybuilding products. There was no Amazon. Essentially.
Yeah, that would have cost them a fortune though. But obviously that was worthwhile.
If they did the Olympia live stream, they probably sold $3 million.
Dave, scratchy. Dave, you're real scratchy right now. Just mute you for a second. Yeah, it's Dave. I'll bring you back in a second, Dave.
So it was
just unmute.
I'm scratching.
See how it is now. I think it's just sometimes when it sounds all right now.
Oh, okay.
It just goes to full static sometimes. But no, it's all right. It's good now. Next question. When is Brett and Stan next on stage? So Stan, do you want to go first?
Sure. I'm not sure actually yet, because the schedule hasn't come out. But I'm thinking probably around July. So maybe Vancouver, Chicago, the shows around this time.
Yep. Nice. Brett.
I'll probably be in that same time frame as well, just because I'm starting my preparation in general just January 1st. So I got to get done with some gut protocol stuff right now. I'm off of everything. I got my blood work done yesterday, Dave, and it came back at a whopping 41 for my total test.
That's good. That's good. That means your receptors are regenerating.
So now I'm actually feeling these feelings and know what people are, talking about, because it's been a while since it's probably never been at 41. So
you were probably fine until you saw the number on paper, and then all of a sudden,
I was feeling. I've been feeling it.
We'll feel that low.
Start back up here at the beginning of the year, and then probably July or August timeframe, because I'll need 3 or 4 months to build, just put the weight back on, push the weight up, and then we'll go from there. So I'll decide.
Nice.
I used to feel so much better after going off for 10 or 12 weeks.
Yeah.
And it sucks when you're off, but when you go back on, you just feel like a new person. It's like you've never taken a cycle before. It's like all of a sudden your body's responding again. You feel good. You're
That's why I did it.
Up,
That's what I did. I mean, like, because even Matt, my coach, was like, let's cruise 125 while we're doing this gut protocol. And I was like, you know what? I want to just I'm gonna make the call, and I'm just gonna go completely off. Go
Very
off
smart.
3-4 months, and then and then when it comes back, let everything come back, fully. And so, beautiful thing was blood work was absolutely. I mean, besides the 41, everything was. This is the first time I was. I think there's just like my ALT was like 1 point over, maybe like. And that's because it was coming down from the prep or whatever. But like,
you know what though, liver enzymes have a lot to do with weight training, because when you break down muscle tissue, and I've said this a million times, but those enzymes are also found in muscle. The reason why when doctors measure, they call them liver enzymes. They don't really call them liver enzymes on the blood work, but they classify them as liver enzymes because most normal people don't break down enough muscle that you ever see those enzymes in the bloodstream.
Right.
Bodybuilders are a weird group of people because that's what we do on a daily basis. We break down as much muscle as possible. And so those enzymes leak into the bloodstream. And so these doctors don't know. Well, some of them know, but most of them don't know. And they think it must be coming from liver. And then they think bodybuilders use steroids. It must be the steroids. But I got news for you. My liver enzymes were high from the very first couple of years I was bodybuilding, and I never even used a steroid because those enzymes are not coming from liver. They're coming from muscle. And a matter of fact, when your liver enzymes are 3 times the normal amount, okay, those enzymes, if that was coming from liver, you'd have no liver left, okay? So the only place you can get that much enzyme in the bloodstream would be from muscle, because think about how much muscle you have on your body. And the bigger you are, the higher those numbers will go because you have more muscle to dump more enzyme into the system. So don't get too worried about those enzyme levels,
Right. That makes sense. Kind of same with creatinine, isn't it?
No, creatinine is different. I'll tell you why. Because creatinine can be affected by like variables. Like if you take creatine, that could jack that up a little bit because the creatine gets broken down to creatinine, so that sometimes will raise that artificially. But assuming you're not on creatine, creatinine's pretty accurate. BUN, blood urea nitrogen, which is another kidney function, that is very determined by hydration, and bodybuilders tend to be very dehydrated when we wake up in the morning. So don't even pay attention to that. If creatinine is normal, under 1.35, then you're good. If it's over that, then your kidneys are under some kind of stress. Now, if it is a little high, I always make people go and get their cystatin C levels checked. Cystatin C is definitive for kidney health. If that's high, you got problems with your kidneys. If it's normal and creatinine's a little high, then you're probably okay.
Nice. Hey Brett, I wanted to ask as well quickly because I heard you on which podcast was it? It was one yesterday. I watched the episode. Was that Nick's and Guy's podcast?
Yeah,
I think. And I remember I heard you saying it was the first time after obviously I don't know if we've spoken since you had to pull out of the Olympia. So I remember you saying at some stage during that it was the first time you felt real actually depressed sort of thing. Did that coincide with going off, or is it just the whole obviously everything you went through?
And just so you know, you're breaking up again unless you want to take it. But
oh my god,
where that came from? No, it was before coming off. So it was like during the prep, and so that's when the issues were arising. And then it was just the head games. The head games involved of not being able to eat, throwing up every time. Not every time. I wasn't every time, but throwing up and having to replace those meals. And it was just becoming a vicious cycle of, I don't want to do this. I don't want to continue to have to throw up and replace that. I don't want to have to continue to not, feel good in my training sessions. And then it just became a head game knowing okay, I'm going to feel like shit again today, just almost like a pessimistic view. And me, I'm very, very, very positive, very always extremely, show it out there, especially in my training. And, that's when I knew things were off. Right. So just that all in general and everything combining into one is when the depression. And I'm not going to sit here and say that I had deep depression. That wasn't it. But it was just more so it was the first time I was having those feelings. Right. And at least I was able to, at first I was being the normal stereotypical bodybuilder, maybe that pushing it to the side or, you got to try to battle through it. It's the Olympia. But then, it was good that I was able to eventually identify that. Right. And so I was taking
what was wrong with you, Brett?
I ended up getting the GI map was what was able to tell me the most. Pretty much just my gut lining. So all those cell membranes, the readings on that were extremely, extremely low or gone. So it's just an extremely bad leaky gut syndrome.
Gotcha.
And then that what happened during the prep was, and you probably don't know the story, but what I was doing is like I would like throw up a meal or two a day, and I'm already somebody. I mean, I'm sure you're the same way. I was still eating like 45 to 5,000 calories. So 4,500 to 5,000 calories, and so I'd have to replace that. So I ended up eating like 9, 10, 11 meals a day, trying to keep that in, and like wasn't absorbing it, and I could tell because I'd eat all that food and I wouldn't even get a pump. You know what I mean? Like it just didn't make sense. So
were you taking probiotics and fiber?
Fiber I was. So side note, I want to let everybody know this is not me. This is the first time I've ever actually talked to Dave and been a podcast on him. But I used Dave's Species Nutrition Fiber Lies for the last 8 to 10 years because it is the best fiber on the market. It really is, and he has no idea I was going to say that. But
I didn't know you used that.
I'm dead serious. I even bought it in bulk from his website. Like he doesn't even know this. I go on there and I buy like 10 at a time.
You're like Guy Cisternino, yeah.
But if you want the best fiber, like it guaranteed the work every single time. You take it for 2 hours later, you're passing and it's clean. Goods. But no, I wanted to get that out there because I do believe in that.
Can save that ad, Dave.
I've always wanted to tell Dave that I love his.
It makes me feel. I feel like a grandmother who feeds their grandson.
Food medicine that's on the market, man. No, but for real, no, I'm doing a lot of that now and stuff. But no, I wasn't doing probiotic. I am now, obviously, to restore everything. I'm doing about 3 different probiotics, and everything is back to normal. But I wasn't at the time, so. It was just like I said. It was just something I think, and you know this, Dave. I spent the last 8 years. I was eating 6,000 calories in the off season and probably 4,000 in season prep. And I would just go back and forth. There was never no break. I never took like
gut rest. You need gut rest sometimes. I know.
Yeah. So I needed that gut rest, and that's what I've been doing now for these last 2.5, 3 months, and I feel so much better and just ready to get back after it.
Hungry
and Dave, I remember when you said even if you do it once a week where you go like 12 hours without eating food or 14 hours or whatever. And I used to follow that. So it was like every cup, I'm like, okay, well, push my meals back. And my gut actually felt better for doing that, like noticeably, even just once a week.
It's after the 8 hours that because it takes 8 hours to get rid of a meal, like especially like a protein meal. So if you once the 8 hours is up, it's now the clock starts. So
truly
20 hours after that you give your gut rest. So yeah, if you can do even once a week, like I said, if you gave your gut, and obviously you're not going to do this while you're dieting for a show because you don't want to lose muscle. But off season, if you give yourself once a week, you maybe eat all your meals within 8 hours of one day a week. That would probably help. I wish I would have done that when I was competing because I was like you, Brett. I was waking up in the middle of the night and drinking shakes all night long too because I couldn't get enough food in. Unlike you, however, I never threw up anything. To get anything out of my body, you'd have to pump my stomach. I wouldn't let it come out.
That's so funny. It's quite funny though. Like even doing that, like just say you do 12 hours and you do it once a week, and the rest of the time, because the way I used to do, I was just on the mark with my meals, pretty much around the same time every single day, 7 a day, and then I would do that 12-hour, sometimes 13-hour gap, and I'd fit the same amount of food in for the rest of the day. So I was like shoveling the rest of the day, and I always would feel like that my body would almost super compensate, and when I go train that night at 6-7 p.m. or something, I'd feel fuller. Like I feel like, you'd be extra hydrated. Like your body just goes, we've been in starvation mode, super compensate, and you actually get a better pump, which is weird. But in the morning, you'd always feel really skinny. Like I'd always do it and then go for a walk that morning and be like, yeah, I feel like you almost feel the water coming out of your body when you're doing tons of carbs, like pissing nonstop. So yeah.
You ever notice like when you're starving, if you miss meals and then you're starving and you could eat anything, you could eat McDonald's, you could eat anything. And it's like you digest it. It doesn't come up on you. It's like for some reason your body says, you've starved me long enough. I will absorb dog shit if you eat it right now. And it's like there's some kind of, like they said, like a super compensation thing. The body is so scared that it's never getting any more food that it just sucks everything right up, and you get a much better absorption on that. So it's like you're resetting your gut like every once a week type of thing.
And then
Will you
sometimes it's a bitch and it won't. You can't get anything.
No, look, what you were doing is the definition of insanity, you know, because you're like, I'm not going to let this whatever's happening to me win. I'm going to win.
Oversaturation for sure.
Yeah, but your body was like, you're not winning. We're not. You can put as much food as you want down. We're gonna puke up the rest of it, you know, if we don't like it.
That's what it was.
The body always wins at the end of the day, you know.
Yeah, I always notice if I'm feeling sick or something and I'm vomiting or going to the toilet, it's like your body just wants to get whatever is in there out. So I'm like, sometimes I used to be a bodybuilder and try to eat my food and put more in, and I would just get sicker and sicker and just vomit it straight out. It's like whatever was going in, coming out. So I'm like, just fluids.
You know, vomiting causes a potassium loss. It's the only way you lose potassium really in your body. So if you're vomiting a lot, you have to really watch your potassium levels because you can go hypokalemic, you know, because of that.
I've heard that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that. Yeah.
Yeah. Very common.
But anyway, we'll wrap it up, guys. I know, Brett, you got to get going soon. And Dave, you're obviously always busy. And I never really ask you to come on podcast because I'm like, you've got a whole bunch of kids. You got RX Muscle, you got Snakes.
You know, the Australian guys, this is good. I always get asked in these weird times. I'm like, I can't do it now. You know, this is a good time for me, right? Early evening is good.
I remember you saying as well, like if someone just messages you last minute, sometimes like, oh, it's easy to do it that way. So I was like, perfect. I can ask Dave. And then it worked. You said, oh, it might be 15 minutes late. You're right on time anyway. So
it worked out fine.
Anyway, thank you so much for doing this, Dave. Everyone go check out
Thank
RX
you.
Muscle. I'm sure everyone watching this has seen RX Muscle a million times before and has probably subscribed. Also, check out Stan and Brett. All the links will be in the description below to their YouTubes, Instagrams, all that sort of stuff. So make sure you follow these guys. But anyway, that's it for us for another episode of Bodybuilding University. For myself, Xavier Wills, Stanimal, Stan Longeaux, Dave Palumbo of RX Muscle, and Brett the Butcher Wilkin. Myself, Xavier Wills, we are out. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Bodybuilding University. If you did, there's a ton more episodes on desktop bodybuilding right now from the past. We've had guys like Nick Walker on. Obviously, weekly we have Brett Wilkin, Nathan Diasha, Martin Fitzwater, Stanimal, Stan Longeaux. Recently had Beef Stew, Stuart Sutherland on. And we have a whole ton more guests coming out for you guys as well. Sergio Oliva Jr., tons of names coming at you guys. Also, you get tons of bodybuilding news, all that good stuff. So make sure you like this video, also subscribe and hit the notification bell button. That way you'll be notified of every video that goes up from myself here, Xavier Wills at Desktop Bodybuilding, and you won't miss out on another episode of Bodybuilding University. So that's it for this one, guys. Xavier Wills and all the guys at Bodybuilding University. This is Desktop Bodybuilding, and we are out.